everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Live, presented by EA Sports Madden NFL 22. I'm Patrick Claybon, and I'm glad to be back with Kimmy Checks and Marcus Grant. Some things have changed. We were in boxes talking to each other about fantasy football, and we were unvaccinated. That was then. One of those things has changed. Kimmy Checks, what else has changed for you?
Just gained a little weight, still have two dogs. In the year I've had them, they've not been trained. So honestly, life's good, man. It's great to see you guys.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to be back. I mean, people keep talking about this mythical off season. I don't really know what that's about, but in the meantime, I've learned how to better rearrange my desk, workspace, loft area. So that's a plus from the last year.
Ooh, good job.
And I've managed to find a spot for all of this hand sanitizer, which we still need because we're still dealing with this. And in terms of being back, we'll be back with everybody on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for the next 2 weeks to help get all of you ready for your fantasy season, which we do. We do care about. NFL Fantasy's back. Sign up, draft a team today. Join the fun. Sign up for free, NFL.com/fantasy. Let's get right to it. Let's set the boards for folks nationwide off the jump. Who is the number one overall pick in 2021 for you, Marcus Grant?
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And back to Christian McCaffrey. I know last year was frustrating. He was injured. He played, 3 games, I believe, last year. But when he's healthy and ready to go, there's just no other running back that's going to see the same sort of workload that he does. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be on the field for probably 90 to 95% of the snaps. He's going to get the majority of the touches. That offense is still going to run through him. You can count on, 100 targets or more. So I'm putting the injury concerns aside, and I'm still going with him as my number one pick.
Marcus, that's great. It's CMC, pretty obvious there. But earlier this year, I was on your show, Fantasy Football Podcast, and we were chatting up who's going to be the number one overall fantasy running back this year. And I said Dalvin Cook, and you actually agreed with me. So I'm going to stand and still say Dalvin Cook. Let's talk about the volume, because in terms of a fantasy running back, that's really what you want to focus on. And the volume is there for Dalvin Cook. Now, I really want to talk about this, the potential for a higher ceiling for him, if you could possibly believe that. Now, in the games he played in 2020, he touched the ball at least 17 times in each game and scored 16 total rushdowns. That was tied for most with Alvin Kamara, but that's just running the ball. The interesting thing here about Dalvin Cook and his ceiling is what happens once he gets red zone targets. Over the last 2 seasons, he's had just shy of 100 receptions for nearly 900 yards, but only 1 receiving touchdowns. Now, I understand the Vikings, they got Justin Jefferson, they've got Adam Thielen. They have these threats on the receiving side of the ball, but once you get some red zone targets for Dalvin Cook and he has both rushing and receiving touchdowns, that's a fantasy MVP and number one for me.
No, you want to talk about a fantasy MVP and number one, Kimmy, I'm going to take one thing off of your pick, and that's the D off of his name, because I'm going with Alvin, the number one scorer in fantasy in 2020. And I get it. The Taysom threat scares you. And it should when Drew Brees was there. But again, Drew Brees was there. Taysom Hill did start 4 games. Alvin Kamara still scored more than anybody else in the National Football League fantasy-wise. Sean Payton, as much as he loves the idea of full-time Taysom, he's not going to rob Peter to support his personal Paul addiction in 2021. Kamara averaged only 2.5 catches in those Taysom starts, but he's too much of a scoring threat to me to pass on when he's healthy. So to me, it's still Alvin Kamara no matter what. And since none of us took my fellow ACLian, Saquon Barkley, it's a horrible club. We don't want anybody to join it. Let's talk about Saquon now. Kimmy, when is the earliest you would take the Giants superstar running back?
I'm smirking because I know I'm going to get roasted for this. And all you guys on the Twitter and on YouTube, you're like, this girl doesn't know fantasy football. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm not taking Saquon Barkley as a top 5 overall pick this year. I'm looking to target him at the end of the first round, maybe at the beginning of the second round if he lasts that long. Now, again, I know what I'm saying. I'm going to stand by what I'm going to say. I'm going to puff off my chest while I say it. Now, he's incredible, and we all lost his minds after that, 2,000-plus rushing yard rookie season. But my only apprehension is that he's not been able to produce similar numbers since then. Now, yes, obviously the big elephant in the room is his injury, and that's clearly why he didn't produce any fantasy numbers last year with that torn ACL. But the Giants' offense now has learned to adjust without him being the only threat. This is a make-or-break season for Daniel Jones. He understands if he wants to continue to be a starting quarterback for the New York Giants, he has to be better at the quarterback position. They now have better receiving weapons with Kenny Golladay joining the team. So yes, when Saquon Barkley is healthy, he's great. But is he going to be a top 3, top 5 fantasy running back after this injury? I'm not sure. So I'm going to wait just a little bit on Saquon.
I totally get your concern there. And I've seen a lot of people sort of waiting till the end of the first round. But if you're telling me the earliest that I'd be willing to take a shot at him, it's number 5 overall. There are 4 running backs that I think are better than him. We just named 3 of them with CMC, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. Derrick Henry slots in there too ahead of Saquon. So that'd be the earliest. Now, at the same time, look, I'm the guy who's been taking Travis Kelsey like as early as possible in pretty much every draft. But what makes me feel a little bit better is that he is back to work. He seemed sort of apprehensive a couple weeks ago about his rehab and his return time. And even the Giants didn't seem all that confident. But now that he's back on the field and working again, I think he goes back to being that same level of workhorse. So I would be willing to take that swing, but I totally get folks who are maybe a little bit squeamish and waiting until later on in the first round.
Yeah, Marcus, I'll go a couple spots ahead of him, go 7 overall. I understand if you would like to go Zeke in this range, but I will draw the line at Jonathan Taylor. I'm not going to take Jonathan Taylor before Saquon, and I've seen that in a few drafts in terms of opportunity. We did the Colts game yesterday. Jacob Eason wasn't super impressive outside of the 2-minute drill. It's Carson Wentz, pre-2020 Carson Wentz. There's enough unknowns in Indy to scare me away there. But in terms of the guys ahead of him, Alvin, Dalvin, Christian, Derek, Zeke, Devontae Adams, then it's Saquon. To me, I'm not super worried about the injury. Yes, Kimmy, I am super worried about Daniel Jones, but perhaps even more so a reason to think that there's going to be more opportunity for Saquon Barkley. Time for Going Strong, presented by Castrol Edge. Let's talk about mileage. Speaking of Castrol Edge, are you worried at all about the mileage, Marcus, on Derrick Henry?
Not even a little bit, you know. And look, I get it. I know people, you know, the guy gets so many touches and he's a physical runner and what have you, and people start to get worried about it. But have you seen Derrick Henry? I mean, this is there's a reason they call him the Tractor Cito, right? Like, he is like heavy machinery rolling down the highway. I'm not really worried about it right now. You know, and what I hope, what would be great is with a new offensive coordinator, maybe they do some more things and get him involved in the passing game a little bit more. Why not just, you know, run some screens, get him out in space, not just have him blast through the line as much as possible. But in the end, like I said, he's my number 3 overall player. I'm not concerned about him in the least.
Yes, what Marcus says. I double that. I second down, whatever it is. What you said, I'm into as well. Now, one thing that you did mention, which is kind of interesting, and one thing that we've hoped for so long, is that Derrick Henry actually does get involved in the passing game a little bit more. Now, with Julio Jones in the mix, as well as A.J. Brown as those receivers, defenses are going to be very hard-pressed to try to stack the box against Derrick Henry. So maybe we see more red zone opportunities, which will make him just more elite than he already is. So, mileage, not any big deal for El Tractor Cito.
Yeah, it's unanimous. The ball isn't heavy. Again, I just talked about a guy I'm taking in the top 10 who had reconstructive knee surgery within the past year. Who cares about mileage? You saw it on the highlights. Derrick Henry isn't that type of running back. When he breaks big plays, he's not smashing over people. He's stiff-arming them from a safe, almost 6-foot difference away, considering his wingspan. It's not the fall that kills you. It's the landing. And Derrick Henry's had lots of soft landings throughout his career here in the NFL. That brings us through the running backs and a couple looks at the top of the draft. Coming up, Josh Allen was last season's top scoring quarterback, but should he be the first passer off the board in 2021? Find out which signal caller our experts say deserves the top spot next on Fantasy Live. back here on Fantasy Live, presented by Madden NFL 22. I'm Patrick Claybon with Kimmy Checks and Marcus Grant, and we're drafting quarterbacks now. We're waiting to do it. But who will the first one be off of the board, Kimmy?
Is it not obvious what I'm going to say? You see KC behind me, it's Patrick Mahomes, and I think this is probably going to be a unanimous decision for all of us. It's obvious. I could rattle off all of his stats. We know that he is an incredible quarterback. Now, the thing here is that he has the safest and most surefire offense in those offensive weapons. We understand his ability to spread the ball to multiple targets, while he's also getting a lot more comfortable in using his legs. Now, I think the biggest question here is, are people willing to take him early in their drafts? You just said, Patrick, people are going to wait. If you're going to take Patrick Mahomes, which is going to be the very first quarterback off the board, the biggest question is, who are you willing to miss out on to make sure that you land Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, that's the concern. Look, I'm taking Mahomes as the first quarterback. I'm probably not going to get him because of where he goes in drafts. And here's the thing. If you're taking him as the first quarterback, that's not you saying that he is going to be the top scoring quarterback. It's basically saying that you feel confident that his range of outcomes is pretty narrow and that he is going to be probably a top 3, top 5 at worst guy. That's the whole point of taking him first. But on the flip side, you're going to have to take him probably in the 3rd or 4th round in a lot of drafts. And at that point, I feel like there's still a lot of quality running backs and wide receivers on the board that I need to get. So I haven't gotten Patrick Mahomes yet, just because right now, the asking price is too much. I can go on a whole other rant about how we need to change that and make it so that it is not a disadvantage, but that's for a different time and show.
Yeah, Kimmy, you were absolutely right. It is going to be unanimous. And also, our reaction to the question is unanimous as well. Because for me, someone in your league is going to take him before you do. And most likely, if you take him before that person does, before that particular sicko takes him, then there was a really good player on the board when you did it. So beware. Congratulations if you get him. But if you do, you probably got him before you should have. So let's keep it here with the quarterbacks. Now that we know the number one off the board, who it is going to be, let's pick between a couple. Who would you prefer to have on your team, Marcus? Aaron Rodgers or Kyler Murray?
I'm going to go with Kyler here because we love quarterbacks who can run with the football, and that is one of the things Kyler does so well. I mean, this is a guy who just missed out on 1,000 rushing yards last year, certainly has the ability to do it this year if he wants to. But we just want guys who can run. You look at the top 10 quarterbacks from last year, and pretty much all of them were giving you at least 300 or more rushing yards. So as much as I love Aaron Rodgers, and I really cheered for the Aaron Rodgers petty party all last year, I feel like it's going to be hard for him to do that, to duplicate that again this year. And I see Rodgers as more of a kind of a back-end fringe, top 10 guy, where I see Kyler as really with a shot to end up being the number one quarterback at the end of the year.
Yo, Marcus, come on now. I understand the hype for Kyler, and I love Kyler Murray, but if the question is, would you rather take Aaron Rodgers or Kyler Murray? The answer here is obvious, that it's Aaron Rodgers. You just said he's on his petty party. This is a revenge tour for him. Why do you not think that potentially and probably his very last season being played in Green Bay, he's not going to try to go on yet another MVP-like run? Now, this is kind of like when you work out and you want to get really hot and like in really good shape right before you break up with someone, just so that they actually see what they're losing as it walks away. That's exactly what is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. This is a petty party. He's going to break up with the Packers, and he's going to do it looking real nice and being a fantasy number one quarterback.
That story sounds real personal, Kimmy. That sounds very specific.
Yeah. Is everything okay?
I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
I don't want to talk about it, guys.
How much more mad can Aaron Rodgers get? He was fantastic last year. There has to be an upper limit, right? You can only go Super Saiyan God level, right? Until they write like another level on top of that, some plot armor for Aaron Rodgers. I'm just not necessarily convinced. I'm exceedingly happy either way, but there's just the cheat code factor with Kyler going in his 3rd year in the exact same offense with the same play caller. There's not many quarterbacks at all that can say that league-wide. And sure, it sputtered a year ago, but if we've ever believed, now is the time for Kyler Murray and company and Cliff Kingsbury in the desert. And if not now, then when? That's what we expect. It's time for unexpected performance presented by EA Sports, Madden NFL 22. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts. Is he a quarterback that you are targeting, Kimmy? And if so, the important question, when?
Yeah, I love Jalen Hurts, and I think his current ADP is around round 11. So I think I'd be pretty darn comfortable taking him right there. Now, I understand the sample size from 2020 was quite small. I think he only started for 4 games for the Eagles, but in that time, he did pretty darn well. I think he averaged something close to just shy of 17 fantasy points per game in those 4 starts, which is not a bad floor. Now, obviously, the sample size is small, but they did add a brand new number 1 wide receiver in Devonta Smith. He's been banged up with a little preseason injury, but he should be ready to go at the start of the season. That means 2 former Alabama teammates are back. And I think the 2 of them could be a surprising little duo. So if there's a guy that you want to target kind of late at the quarterback position in fantasy, Jalen Hurts, not a bad option this season.
No, absolutely love Jalen Hurts this season. And you talk about that stretch he had at the end of the year. I mean, let's go back to the conversation we just had about loving quarterbacks who run with the football. Weeks 14 through 17, those last 4 games of the season where he started, the only quarterback that had more rushing yards than Jalen Hurts was Lamar Jackson. So now throw in the fact, as you mentioned, they add Devonta Smith. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more than people are anticipating this year. But the fact that he can get out of the pocket and make plays, I love it. And because, I've been drafting for a while with a lot of the diehards who everybody's trying to get that edge, which creeps his ADP up, which if I could get him in the 11th round, I would be thrilled. I've had to reach for him in the 9th on occasion just because I know there's somebody else out there that's eyeing him, and I got to try to sneak that last piece of pizza in there before somebody else grabs it.
And that's the problem with getting that last piece, that sneaky last piece of pizza, is there's a lot of arms going in the box, especially when you play with a bunch of absolute sickos like we do. I'm looking at about round 10. We're all there in line of where we would like to get Jalen Hurts, but I'll probably end up streaming it up because everybody saw it. It's hard to sneak up on people with Jalen Hurts, especially considering the way that the season ended. Okay, coming up next, folks, on Fantasy Live, we got a list of must-have wide receivers that you can grab at a bargain price. And these players are going to be the key for you to hoist a trophy or a plaque or a t-shirt or however you celebrate in 2021. That's coming up next. Hey, we're back on NFL Fantasy Live, where we will be with you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 Eastern for the next couple of weeks. Let's talk wide receivers. When is the earliest that you would draft Davante Adams, Marcus?
I would get him 7 would be the earliest for me. I talked about the 5 running backs that I liked in the first part of the show, so I probably have those 5 up there. Travis Kelsey is in there somewhere because I want to just make sure I have that tight end headache taken care of. And then I go with Devonta Adams. I look a few weeks ago when we weren't sure about Aaron Rodgers' status, that was a different answer for me. I was probably waiting another round or two to get Devonta Adams. But now that we know that AR-12 is going to be back there in Green Bay, then I'm perfectly happy taking Devonta Adams somewhere like middle to late first round.
Marcus, right there in lockstep with you. Like you said, we've identified the top 5 fantasy running backs, and then it's a little bit murky. I think Jonathan Taylor could maybe be number 6, but in my opinion, I'd probably take Devonta Adams over him. It's kind of up in the air between him and Tyreek Hill on the first wide receiver that I would take off the boards. But like you said, and like I actually said earlier in the show, I stand for his quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Might as well stand for the wide receiver, numero uno, as well.
Yeah, if you're going with the rage revenge theory for Aaron Rodgers again, it makes sense. And I think it's the 6 range for me. Things might be chalky at the top everywhere, but Devonta Adams might be the surest bet out of everybody. It's him or, Saquon at 6, depending on the league scoring for me. But if push comes to shove, I'm going to take Devonta before I'm taking Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, the rest of those backs, or like Marcus said, trying to snag a Travis Kelsey or a Darren Waller if you're feeling a little froggish. It's time to talk about some wideouts. Who is your must-have? Got to have them. Otherwise, you throw the whole draft in the trash, Kimmy. Who do you need at wide receiver in the middle of the rounds?
I am so excited about CeeDee Lamb. I wish Florio was here because Florio has been standing for CeeDee Lamb even last season. But I'm going to jump on the hype train right now. Guys, remember this when you guys do hype train later on in the season. Now, if the Cowboys keep using CeeDee Lamb in the slot and Dak stays healthy, then I think he has the potential to be a top 10 fantasy receiver. Now, I think last season, and people even now maybe get stuck on the fact of, well, the Cowboys have too many offensive weapons, and that's why they maybe want to shy away from CeeDee Lamb. But he's had a full, proper offseason understanding this offense and getting his QB1 and Dak Prescott back. So I'm excited for his ceiling, and I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be a sneaky steal in those middle rounds that could hopefully make me a fantasy champion against you two fools.
The bad news for you, though, is that by the time Hard Knocks is over, the CeeDee Lamb hype train is going to be overbooked, probably. But
true. Good point. Darn it.
I'm going to stay in the division, and I'm going to go with Devonta Smith, the rookie, the Heisman Trophy winner. And he was drafted, the moment he was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, he immediately became their best receiver. And I know he's dealing with some minor injury issues that have kept him out so far in the preseason. Not worried about it. He's still available in the 7th round or later in some drafts. When you watch him, the word that comes to mind is just technician in the way he runs his routes and he gets open. And he's going to see a lot of targets. I expect him to be a 100-target person in his very first year. And if I can grab him in as many places as possible, I'm a very happy person.
And I'm happy that we're back doing this. And I love, Kimmy, how you said that CD had a proper offseason. I like it. I hope we had a proper welcome back to all of you to Fantasy here on Fantasy Live. We'll see you Wednesday for more Fantasy Live beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern for Kimmy Checks and Marcus Grant. I'm Patrick Claybon. We'll see you on Wednesday.